Hello, my name is Carol May Whittick, spiritual life coach and your host of Higher Energetic Resonance Inspirations. This week I'm exploring the concept of detachment and its role in spiritual growth. From Amit Ray, in detachment the soul discovers the vast expanse of potential and becomes a channel for divine manifestation. From Bodhidharma, the essence of the way is detachment. So detachment, when it comes from the perspective of spiritual practice or kind of leaning into it when we're doing the work, as it were, is not about withdrawing from life, but more so embracing a more healthier way of relating to ourselves and also the way that we relate to the world around us. It's about finding a level of peace so that we can then embark on spiritual growth. So understanding detachment, the common misconceptions about detachment, I would say, would really be confusing it with the idea of someone being indifferent or apathetic. And in my mind, both of those definitions, both of those words will conjure up the idea that someone has reached a point where they have no feelings for something at all, neither good nor bad. It's just a complete standoff. To highlight the ways that I'm witnessing apathy in the world at large is just the lack of concern that people have to things that are happening that could affect them in the near future, and yet are reluctant to look into them further because nothing is happening in the moment. So their apathy is almost an expectancy that somebody will take up the mantle and make the move as and when the move should be made. It's a powerless state, whereas detachment involves a lot of strength to be able to set yourself apart from something but still be connected in all the ways that are necessary. Being able to find detachment can actually give you more freedom and more liberation from the constraints and the holds of society, of the world, of any area that you may find yourself that has charged you with a level of responsibility, and more often than not a should that you should be doing, a responsibility that actually doesn't give you an empowered choice. It's more like a noose around your neck and becomes a noose. When it comes to detachment on a deeper, more emotional level, we need to really be aware of how we are being emotionally manipulated, particularly if we look at the way that things are weaponized in the world. And that can mean if we strongly identify with a particular label, then when the shoe is on the other foot and suddenly that label then becomes what people use to denigrate a section of society, or that they're seen as victims, or that they're seen as the perpetrators of crime, or so forth. If you then are very closely entwined with the belief that that label is you, that you're attached to that label and you identify with it, then when being that thing that you have decided that you are is not the flavour of the month in any way, no one's talking favourably about it, or they're being in a situation where they are believed to be oppressed, then you will, by nature of your attachment to that label, go down or go up with it. You are sovereign in the way that you choose to respond to something, and response is the key word there, as opposed to being triggered into a reaction, which is, the phrase that we hear a lot of the time, being in your feelings, means that at the flip of a switch you can go from rage to sorrow to euphoria to despondency, simply because of external triggers, as opposed to where you're coming from truly, or what you truly know and believe to be right for you. And by cultivating emotional detachment, then you're able to actually run a filter through something, especially if you notice that you're kind of gravitating towards a reaction, and take a beat, take a breath, and allow yourself to evaluate what it is that's happening, and maybe also evaluate, is there a reason that I'm being led into this? And in particular as well, if you notice that there is a mass of people going in one direction and are feeling the same way, are being pulled in one direction, to again take a beat and see if that's relevant to you, or if everyone is reacting because they are being pulled that way by their emotions. And then there's detaching from outcomes. When we get attached to a specific outcome, or we need something to go a certain way, if it doesn't, then it's creating suffering within us. And even prior to finding out the result, or waiting for or awaiting the result for what we want to happen, being in a state of anxiety for wanting something to turn out a certain way is cultivating a level of suffering within us. If we allow ourselves to get into a space of surrendering control and trusting that things are going to work out in the way that's divinely ordered for us, then it means that we can be at peace in the moment, even if we have a very important desire. Holding that space of detachment, holding that space of waiting for the right thing to turn up as it is, and being in that space of trust, almost allowing ourselves to be in limbo. And if you've ever tread water, you know that it's not an inactive stance to be in. You're actually actively making a movement. It's a very powerful state to be in, to find yourself to kind of wait and be still in a moment when things are shifting and moving around you. It's being still, but also being ready, being powerful. And when it comes to relationships, if we can find a way of allowing people to be in their own space, allowing ourselves to be our own person, maintaining our own boundaries, and this seems to be the buzzword that everyone is really talking about now, is discovering and maintaining our boundaries, because we found so much of us previously have been in codependent relationships, or have fallen into people pleasing and pretzeling ourselves into different shapes, denying other aspects of ourselves in order to cling and maintain an attachment that actually isn't an attachment. It's more like an energetic stranglehold on somebody else by not allowing them to be themselves. Or if anyone then decides that they're going to transform themselves and move forward in their own journeys, that doesn't pose a problem or trigger an argument for the people who feel that they're going to be quote unquote left behind. When we talk about being detached from material possessions, well, we can kind of think about that. And that's plainly obvious. We live in such a material world. Recently, I've been interested in the concept of minimalism. As somebody who's personally taking note of all the things that I have around me and making sure that I don't overload myself with things that I'm just purchasing for the sake of it, or for the sake of other reasons, which is another topic for another day, and being able to be free of the weight and the need to have so many things around me, those status symbols. And the way that really got imprinted on me is when I started taking extended trips abroad and living out of one suitcase for weeks, if not months in some instances. And even then, with the things that I'd taken in one suitcase, and it was a check-in suitcase, much of the time as well, for all the items that I had in that one suitcase, I then realised that I was only using maybe 30% of the things I'd brought with me, simply because I'd not really taken into account how certain fabrics feel on your body in a tropical climate. So I had really very few suitable clothes to wear. And I survived just fine. And then when you come back to the West and all your stuff, and I had so much stuff in storage, it just, looking at it, felt exhausting before even unpacking and placing it into a new home and everything like that. And then over time, you just get used to having things around you. And even then, when you go out, you see something that's pleasant in the store and you buy it, even though you don't need it, you then kind of get back into that bringing things into your space. But what is a useful practice, and I did this last year and I'll be doing it again this year, is to just go through everything. And if it's too heart-wrenching to just give it away, then sell it. And it's interesting how the things that you have around you that have such a charge on you can be worth so much more to someone else. And you can transform that unworn piece of clothing into money that you can put towards something else. And when it comes to spirituality and the role of detachment or non-attachment as in a spiritual practice, non-attachment isn't about avoiding or numbing our emotions. It's about being present and accepting that these are the ways that we feel, these are the thoughts that we're thinking, by then also taking into account that we're just here for a short period of time. So if we then can find a way of cultivating that core strength and that center within us, then we're able to express ourselves more, because then we learn how to master our thoughts, our emotions, rather than being at the mercy of external triggers to those things, or even internal triggers to those things. And in closing this, and the way that you may choose to consider or practice detachment in your own life, is to think about detachment as something that's going to allow you to navigate the way that you live with a lot of wisdom and a lot of grace. And these are powerful words. These are words that mean that you're finding a way of inner peace, and you're finding a way of growing and expanding as you move forward. It's not about disconnection. It's about actually embracing life. So it's holding life in your space, in your heart, in your mind, without attachment. So being aware of all things, having feelings and respect and love for all things, but not being pulled or held by them. My parting perspective of detachment is that detachment is a state of power. Detachment is you finding the core of yourself, what is true for you and what is not true for you, and to be able to hold strong in that position despite whatever is happening around you. It takes courage to exist in and with detachment. But anything that we have that's externally pulling on us, even if it's the smallest of things, actually has power over us. Detachment is to be unaffected by anything, allowing things to leave you without being shaken by them. But by the same token, it doesn't mean that you don't care and you don't have feelings and you don't have love. Quantifying what that means to you takes work, and building a self-trust of your own knowing within yourself, and also being able to then communicate that to others who, when you're not reacting in the way that you quote unquote should, will take umbrage with that. From Levi Ramos: every transformation precedes the letting go of your previous state. So thank you for being with me on this episode of Higher Energetic Resonance, Inspirations about Detachment. If you haven't already, see the link in the show notes of ways that you can work with me. You can join Embody Higher Energetic Resonance journey, which is 3 steps closer to becoming the woman of your dreams. A totally free guided journey for you to really feel into who and what you can be, and in itself is a lesson in detachment from your own fears of moving forward and becoming what it is that you feel in your heart that you want to be. And then if you desire to work deeply with me on a personalized one-to-one basis through my spiritual life coaching program, again, follow the link in the show notes. More information for you there. My website is carolmaywhittick.com, carolmaewhittick.com. Find me, Carol May Whittick, on Facebook and Casmic on Instagram. Until the next week, have a great one.